tweets now.
Okay.
Because that's a 15-inch driver. It's a huge
Oh
camera.
yeah, that's got to be massive. Yeah.
That's the ribbon tweet, though.
Well, yeah, it's so I'm not sure what Lawrence lied about, but it's probably going to be fantastic, I guess. But now, so we what I always explain is where we come from, a Dutch manufacturer. We have been active in pro audio, having always worked with this technology, and we've mastered what we call pro ribbon.
Yeah.
The pro ribbon thing is a lot of people like, oh, it's ribbon. I always loved the sound of ribbons. But what then they don't tell you, at least not in my face, is say, yeah, but it's poor power handling, poor efficiency, low impedance, it's fragile. And they're all true. As true as the fact that this is not ribbon technology at all. It's only a ribbon, we call it, because it actually is a ribbon physically, as you see. But other than that, it's just a simple electrodynamic loudspeaker. So it's got a radiating surface, it's got a voice coil, and of course a magnet structure.
Sure.
The arrangement is slightly different, of course, and how the coil is placed. It's how the coil is on the diaphragm, on the radiating surface, is a story in itself. But actually, with this technology, we've been able to create a very large PA, basically the largest PA systems, touring systems.
Yeah.
But then with the fidelity of a studio monitor. And then we were looking at the other end of the spectrum and say, okay, well, if we have a PA system with a studio monitor, we actually need a studio monitor with the output of a PA system. Unfortunately, in the studio monitor world, you can't say high SPL, because that's I think that's cursing. So you talk about massive headroom, unlimited headroom, things like that. But it was a challenge that I started. Actually, but I started it but because I had a long time thought of we do the largest play out, we do the sort of medium play out in terms of performing arts, house of worship, cinemas. Screening rooms. Then from screening rooms we went into the post-production studios, and following the post-production studios, a lot of studios say, you know, we have you in the big room, we have smaller rooms, can't you make something smaller? And then looking into that, we found that actually they entered a different market. They entered the market of the studio monitors.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas the mix stage typically is driven by the cinema world.
Yeah.
What cinema systems are on the market. And funny enough, the cinema and the studio monitors monitor markets is two totally different markets. We looked into that, and I said, well, we have to be able to use the exact same technologies that we use in all the other markets to make it work. But we only will make the studio monitor if it adds something to the market.
Sure. Yeah.
If it would be a Me Too product, and just for the simple fact saying, oh, we've got monitors as well, but nobody would buy it because it sounded like shit or it doesn't do anything different,
Sure. Yeah.
then it wouldn't make sense. So the outcome is this. This is, I think it's probably prototype 6 or something, or 5. Many iterations, and using all the technologies and the know-hows we have from the other systems and markets. 5.
Oh,
Yeah, from 1985 onwards. Yeah. I mean, the company is not
when I
40
was
years.
born.
Yeah, sorry for that. But so how do you think that makes me feel, right?
How do you think it makes me feel?
Anyway, good for you. You missed out all the fun, whatever. No, the original idea, was from Philips Electronics, and the company we worked for at that time took on a prototype of Philips. Philips was in hi-fi speakers, and they called it ISO-phase tweeter. There are some highly sought after Philips FB1000s from the mid 80s. If you find them, they're worth a fucking fortune, because they got the 2-inch Philips ISO-phase and they got the 4-inch ISO-phase. Anyway, that's inside story. If you find them, whatever it takes, pay the price. Because I'll buy them off you. But anyway, so that 4-inch was actually the first start to get a driver that would go down to 1000 hertz and go all the way up to 20,000 hertz. Now that thing was a starting point for us to to beef it up to make it reliable for, let's say, the Formula One circuits we call live sound touring or sound reinforcement. Now, of course, in the meantime, we started our own company. This as a basis for sure, not so much the core we're floating on, because if you look at all the other technologies we include in amplification, the processing, it's all about how to get the maximum sound quality out of it. So when we started in the touring market, we had to come up with an amp. The focal point was not to get an amp with enough voltage rails output.
Yeah.
The focal point was we get the design, the Class D topology with high fidelity, and then we see how we can get more voltage out of it.
The amps are inside these?
No,
Or
this is the amp.
Oh
This-
right,
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
depends. I'll explain it later on. So.
Yeah.
So it's amplification. The focal point has always been maximum clarity, and why? Sorry, maximum sound quality. Why? Because we had this, and this sucks up everything before. If the amp is not right, if the filter is not right, if the cabling is not right, if the accompanying cone drivers, because we deliberately said we're not going to chase any full range craziness of this technology. It works from 1K perfect. Anything below it, we cover with cone drivers.
Sure.
But that's a story in itself. You know, how do you get to the performance that we want to match with this driver? Anyway, I can fill a couple of days with that as well. But anyway, so but because we always focused on maximum sound quality on the touring side, on the sound reinforcement systems, in that sense, it was a no-brainer seeing those technologies working into a studio environment or a reference monitor environment. Now, so we decided to first come up with what a sort of mid-range model. So let's say near field, mid-field thing. It's obviously we could scale up, scale down from here, but we first wanted to get response from this community.
Yeah.
Again, we come from the post-production side, so that's immersive based. In immersive, you work with a lot of channels. So we focused on a multi-channel amp because you don't want to have self-powered everywhere in the ceiling and behind the screen.
Yeah.
But the reality is, after today, being in this environment with a lot of people just only working with a left and a right, and they expect self-powered, and there's like, I'm not gonna, for 2 speakers, I'm not gonna buy 8-channel amp.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we've got another challenge on our hands, but overseeable and not totally unexpected. So, but anyway, so you know, coming back briefly on this model, it's what we call a mid-range. But as you know, may or may not, look at ATC, PMC. They have sort of a mid-range set, top-end set. It's a 1-inch soft dome, a 3-inch soft dome. And then the rest is just filling out with an 8-inch and a 10-inch and 12-inch, double 10, double 12, 15, double 15, and what have you. It surprised me mostly because basically that double 15 with still the same soft dome and top end soft dome mid-range, I don't think it adds anything to the sound pressure level. It adds to a lot of low frequency response, but anyway, that's good for them, and that seems to be the standard, the soft dome 1-inch, 3-inch of the ATC, PMC, and the Neumanns. So we said, okay, we take the signature of our monitors will be then the high frequency 2-inch and the 5-inch mid-range that goes from 1K to 250. So it doesn't have to go all the way up to 3.5K like with the other brands. This is actually a device that we made because we have an asymmetrical component configuration to get the best on-axis response. So this is not in line, but is per definition asymmetric. So we have to have a left and a right.
Sure.
And the clever Dick will say, "Oh, there's got to be a center as well, so that's going to be symmetrical." Yes, it's going to be symmetrical. Yeah. But because it's asymmetrical, the tweeter will see on one side, if it's freestanding, a free air, and we'll see on the other side, we'll see its baffle. So you get an asymmetric response because on one side it folds around the cabinet, on the other side it will bounce and acts as a baffle.
Yeah.
So this acts as basically a diffuser or an absorber, basically, to create a symmetrical, in the horizontal plane, symmetrical situation for the high frequency driver. So if you would make it soffit mount, which is possible, then of course this will be closed, because then otherwise there the speaker, the tweeter, will see a wall, and here it will see a diffusion absorber. The 5-inch is interesting because we use a dual coil structure. Dual coil nowadays is more like, oh, we've got extended excursion or more power handling. Now in this case it's one passive coil and one active coil. So the active coil is typically mounted to the cone, and the passive coil is mounted in the gap. And then we connect, and basically that coil is in anti-phase, what do you call it? Reverse phase. And we have a capacitor on the back of the driver that absorbs all the inductance that's generated by the speaker. So you get a much cleaner, clearer mid-range. Not only that, and you will hear also on the small monitors, the low end has lost all its boxiness. Typically with small drivers you hear this ploppy, typical small driver response on the low end, and well, you can hear for yourself what it's about. And that's signature as well. That's also technology we have in different formats. And then the low frequency driver is also next gen motor structure. Very low, let's say simply said, very low distortion, but it really is an essential new step in how to build a motor structure. I can explain a lot more about it, but that will. And then the port is interesting. It took us a really long time because we couldn't find, we didn't want to go transmission line for a number of reasons. Sound wise, I don't like transmission line, so I said that's out of the question. We looked at sealed cabinet, but then you throw away a lot of energy. Then the question was more like, how can we get a reflex setup that properly works? And then we worked with a lot of different reflex vents, and they were all chuffing.
Chuffing, squeaking, making all sorts of turbulence noises.
Yes, so the port compression, so at like a 30-35 hertz, there's some tracks that are really low end, and you hear them like, and like
farting.
Farting, yes, there you go. So we didn't want that, but what you can't see, it's basically a whole scoop-shaped reflex channel. So it's not just like something that looks like this, but it's really internally scooped. I mean, the wood shop is very happy with it. But since this research we've done with the semi-scoop thing, which we call a flow vent, is being used in even flow monitors and all that stuff that we make. So anyway, so having said that, amplification, interesting, 8-channel. The setup I have here is very simple. We've got full bar playback, WAV files going from USB to AES3 on the yellow tech.
Sure.
And then straight AES3 into the amp, and that's it. Nice. So
come on, blow me away.
Okay. Yeah,
I've got high expectations here.
Exactly.
It's the people who were in here last was like,
so,
wow, this is incredible.
This is it. Now,
so we've got high expectations.
That's all right. Okay, let's.